Good afternoon, everybody. It is 2:30 here, so we will get started shortly. Thank you all for joining us. And on behalf of the CCBA and our board of directors, I would like to welcome you to today's diversity webinar and survey launch. We'll just give it another moment here while everybody gets logged on, and then we'll get started. So my name is Hillary Hochstein. I'm the member support coordinator and communications here at CCBA. So the CCBA represents all Canadian craft breweries across Canada, and we work to promote and protect independent craft beer in 3 ways. So we do that through lobbying the federal government. We provide member programs to support breweries, and we promote your products both nationally and internationally. As members of your provincial association, you are by structure already members of the CCBA. So we invite you to sign up on our website to access those member services and programs if you haven't done so already. And by doing that, you'll also receive our monthly newsletter. And we also wanted to invite you to engage with us on social media so that you can stay up to date with everything that is happening as far as our latest campaigns and initiatives. If you have any questions during the webinar, we just ask that you'll put them in the chat. We do have a Q&A time designated at the end of the hour, and the panelists will answer your questions at that time. This webinar will be taking place in English only. We do have a French webinar happening on Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern. So if you'd like to join us in French, you can do that by registering at the same link that you RSVP'd for this webinar for. We've got some really great speakers joining us today, and we are looking forward to hearing from all of them. So speaking today is Dr. Jay Jackson from Crafted for All, Samin Sadaat from Jalapeno Employee Engagement, Ren Nevarro from Beer Diversity, as well as committee member Blair Berdusco from Alberta Small Brewers Association. So I would like to introduce Steve Beauchesne. He is the co-founder of Beau's Brewing in Van Cleek Hill, Ontario. He's a member of our CCBA board of directors, and he's also the chair of the Anti-Discrimination and Inclusion Committee. So I'll pass it over to you, Steve.
Hi gang, can you hear me now? Well, that's embarrassing. I joined the Zoom link on my phone and my Hangout link on the on my audio. And there were other people on the Zoom link or on the Hangout link as well.
Oops, here we are.
I'm just going to ask quickly, is my audio working okay?
Yeah, you're good, Steve.
And Hillary, have I already been introduced while I was on the wrong, my audio was on the wrong thing?
I said all kinds of nice things about you.
Oh, that's terrible. Are we good to start?
We are ready to go, Steve. I just introduced the CCBA and you're up.
Okay. Well, I apologize for my technical difficulties there. Glad to have everyone on the call. I'm just going to share my screen here, if that's okay. Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So thanks so much for joining us. I'll move quickly. We're already running a few minutes behind on account of my technical difficulties. But this is a webinar for our industry-wide survey the CCBA Inclusion and Anti-Discrimination. As far as agenda goes, I'm going to quickly walk you through the rules of the committee itself and provide a quick introduction. Then Dr. J is going to tell us kind of the why of this survey, so why it's important. He's going to go through the what, so what to expect, and some of the logistics. Back to Dr. J for the who, which will be the survey questions. Then Ren's going to talk through the survey deliverables and put this in a Canadian context. At 3, well, time is probably going to be off on all this, but then Hillary's going to be here to direct questions to the appropriate panelists, and then we'll do a call to action. So I wanted to walk you through first who's on the committee for this CCBA. So we've got myself, Blair from the Alberta Sulphurs Association, Ashley from Boxing Rock, Mitch from Upstream, Chloe from Townsite, Justin from Kitty Bitty, Josh is also from Bose, Danielle also from the Alberta Small Brewers Association, Rick, our executive director of the CCBA, and then Hillary as also from the CCBA. So we've got a good mix of folks from right across the country, and we've been working at the committee now for several months. I just want to explain quickly what the committee's all about and its objectives. So without kind of reading word for word here, we've established the committee to reduce instances of discrimination, harassment, and be more inclusive as an industry. We are going to be working on a committee manifesto to accurately describe the future state that we desire. We're going to make sure that all of our work is respectful of the fact that alcohol has been a weapon against Indigenous people. And we're going to encourage and support development of outside expertise and foster the work of advocates to leverage their position as opposed to trying to reinvent wheels on our end. We have 4 objectives. The first objective is to increase representation of marginalized groups in craft beer and offer more opportunities so that they can keep themselves reflected in the craft beer industry. And a lot of the survey that we're going to be going through today is geared to really help and benchmark some of the specific issues that we want to know more about. The second objective is to reduce discrimination currently faced in the craft beer industry. This is going to reduction of offensive packaging and/or cultural appropriation. Also, the same for advertising and communications, and see an increase in positive and inclusive packaging, advertising, and other communications. I also want to see reduction of discrimination both inside the brewery walls and outside the brewery walls, and provide an opportunity for tracking of incidents and creating disincentives for offenders, as well as incentives for folks to do better. Third objective is to educate on how to do better and to maintain the progress that we make, and that will include building guidelines, addressing issues of ignorance, and providing sensitivity training, establishing best practices, and really to normalize the conversation around marginalized individuals and remove some of the stigma. Our last objective is to use craft beer as a catalyst for community inclusivity. Want to use the popularity of our industry and our wonderful beer to help make the world a better place, not just our industry a better place. So we see craft beer as a mediator in conversations, and want to make sure that we make craft beer more accessible to everyone, including safe spaces and tap rooms, and making the connection that there's no room for hate in craft beer. So I apologize for whipping you through that at lightning speed, but I wanted to make sure that we have most of the time for our experts to walk us through the important survey work that we're going to be doing. This is it's a very important piece of our work. We wanted to make sure that we didn't jump to conclusions before we fully understood the scope and scale of the issues that we face. So I'm going to pass off now to Dr. J. And what I can do is, leave the agenda up, or I can take it. Actually, why don't I take it off so that the folks see me speaking. But Dr. J, can you tell us a bit about the why surveying is important to establish a baseline?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Steve. And hello, everyone. If you all don't know me, my name is Jay, Jay Jackson Beckham. I am the principal of a consultancy called Crafted for All that helps craft beverage organizations develop more inclusive, equitable, and just organizational practices. And through this role, I have a partnership with the Brewers Association in the United States, in which I serve as their equity and inclusion partner. Many of you know I've had a relationship with the Brewers Association since 2018 as their diversity ambassador. So in my capacity, both with the Brewers Association and as a small business owner, I've used survey tools like this quite a lot as a way to both take the temperature and serve as a way to direct future action. In fact, many of you know that I am a former college professor, and as a social scientist, surveys are kind of a core tool in my toolbox. And so today I just want to talk to you about a couple of reasons why I think they're really important. And the first for me overall is really about situating the D word, which is the word diversity. We talk about it a lot. It was on the title slide. But I think putting it in context is a really great way to start conversations about these surveys and why we do them. Now, you may have noticed when I went through my titles and the work that I do, I didn't say the word diversity. I threw out the words equitable, inclusion, equity, and justice. And there's a reason why I don't necessarily center the word diversity, and that's because I think it's an outcome. So I'll explain. For me, when we talk about inclusion, we're really talking about making sure everyone who wants to has the ability to be included in the room, in the activities that we're putting forward. And when I talk about equity, I'm really talking about whether or not we have established both policy and procedure that allows everyone to achieve the same quality of experience. And when I talk about justice, I'm really talking about making sure that we don't have any barriers that are keeping people from having access or keeping people from advancing in the industry. I'm a firm believer that if you do those three things correctly, inclusion, equity, and justice, then you will inevitably arrive at diversity. Now, the cool thing is that I think you will arrive at a lot of other great places too, like higher employee engagement, profitability, community interaction, and more. So with that goal of being an inclusive, equitable, and just space, right, that cultivates and allows diversity to flourish, we need to have some understanding about where we are so that we know how to get where we want to go. And for me, this is really about the distinction between intentions and outcomes. Now, all of us, if we take a minute and think about the discourse around inclusion, equity, justice, and diversity, the ways that we talk about things like harassment, things like discrimination, we're really focused on our intentions, right? We say things like, well, we're trying really hard, or nobody's telling that person they can't be part of this industry, right? We're really fixated on how we intend things to be. But I want to challenge all of us to move beyond intentions and start thinking about outcomes. And you do this automatically when you think about the things that are really important about your business. For example, your sales. If you're looking at your Q2 sales reports right now, you probably aren't fixating on how much your sales reps intended to sell. You're looking at those receipts, you're looking at the outcomes, and the outcomes should drive action. So what a survey allows us to do is really focus on outcomes. We can look at things not only like who's participating in the industry and in what ways, but what kinds of experiences are they having as members of the community. Now I'm going to talk a little bit later about exactly how surveys do this. Right now I want to stick to these whys, but I think I want to cover a couple things before I pass things off to Samin, who's going to really kind of dig into what this particular survey instrument is going to look like. The other pieces of the why that I want to address here are really about some industry imperatives, right? Some big picture, 25,000 foot perspective on why we need to do this. First, and I don't think we should be scared about having this conversation, there is a financial imperative associated with more inclusive, equitable, and just operation. It not only does things like increase employee engagement and productivity, decrease turnover and training time, but it gives you access to broader populations of potential customers that you have not accessed yet. The broader data says that there are tons of untapped consumer markets out there, and there is a financial imperative here that I think it's okay to acknowledge. Second, I think there's an innovation imperative that we need to pay attention to. Now, I'm a big basketball fan, and when I try to kind of talk about this piece of the puzzle, I often tell people, you can't have 5 point guards on the same team. Meaning you need to have different people with different skill sets in order to make a team very effective. Socio-demographic diversity works in the same way. Okay? If you build teams that have lots of different skills, lots of different experiences, and lots of different perspectives to bring to bear, you build stronger teams and you innovate faster as a small business. Third, and most importantly for me, there is an ethical imperative. As an industry, craft beer has so much to offer. I always say that whether you have a GED or a PhD, there is a career for you in craft beer. And we are an industry that reaches all over the world, not just over in North America, but we are in every corner of the world, providing opportunities both in rural and urban spaces. So I believe that we can be an ethical force for good as an industry, and that having the right tools and the right information that we need to chart that course is absolutely critical. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to Samin, who's going to talk to you a little bit more about the particular survey you're going to see. And just in a few minutes, I'll be back to chat a little bit about how surveys give us the information we want.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. J. And as you're saying, it's beyond the moral and legal obligations. There's also financial benefits that sometimes we ignore. All right, I'm just going to share my screen and then we can start. All right, thumbs up if you can see the slide with diversity and inclusion webinar. Awesome. All right, welcome everyone. Thanks for being here today to really join our forces to make fundamental changes in the brewing industry. I'm Samin, Executive Director of Jalapeno Employee Engagement, and I will discuss how the process will work and what's really behind that survey. All right, first, I would like to congratulate you for being the role model for other industries to take tangible actions for this important matter. So congratulations to all of you for taking the first step. All right, as Dr. J mentioned, the survey is more than just one questionnaire. The foundation of this project is psychology and technology. So let's talk about psychology first. So in order to drive growth, drive change, your industry needs to unlock your people's potential because people are the ones that drive change and growth. And in order to unlock your people's potential, first, you really need to understand your people's mindset and their conditions in context of diversity and inclusion. And in order to be able to do that, first you need to use a science-based, tailored psychological assessment to really understand the working conditions and your people, which Dr. J has contributed to this significantly. So the survey will be able to take care of this step. However, how does technology play a role in this? So we leverage technology to go through this process of change more effectively, efficiently, objectively, so there won't be any biases, and most importantly, in a very confidential way. So in order to understand your people, we will be measuring your people's psychological and organizational status through confidential assessments. We cannot rely on our own assumptions, what our people need or what our company needs. So we really need to use technology to do that in a more objective way. So the survey will be using different metrics to measure psychological and organizational status in context of diversity and inclusion, and you'll be able to track that over time. Then we will analyze and interpret the potential of your people accurately and objectively. Therefore, we will show you the story that data will tell you in an aggregated format. Data is useless if we cannot understand what it's trying to say. Data can be very dangerous if we misunderstand the story that the data is trying to tell us. Therefore, it is very important to make sure we interpret and analyze the data correctly for you. And lastly, we will provide you with actionable insights and resources that empower you. So we make sure the data does not stay on shelf, and it actually empowers people to take necessary actions towards growth rather than creating unintended consequences or chaos. All right, another secret sauce of this project is the formula that we use to create sustainable change. We do not put all the responsibilities on you as business owners. We create mutual accountability between you and your staff. So we strongly believe that in order to have sustainable change, 50% of the work is done by involving your staff, giving them a voice and power to speak up and to take actions, which this survey will play a role in this. Another 50% is organizational condition, which you already taking the first step by being in this webinar in order to learn what changes you make in your brewing for further growth. And this is the only way you can have sustainable change. All right, the main message that I want all of you to take from really my 5-minute presentation is that the survey is conducted by Jalapeno Employee Engagement. Jalapeno is an independent and impartial party and will never disclose identifiable individual responses to any individuals or entities. Your individual responses will remain confidential and will be only shown in aggregated format. To protect your data, all data is stored in a password-protected electronic format. To make you feel more secure, Jalapeno is using a very strong security system to ensure that your data is stored securely, all in Canada. So to learn more about the securities we are using to protect your personal information as well as your data, you can visit our website. And if you scroll all the way down to the footer, there is a security and privacy page with all the details of all the securities we're using to make sure your data remains protected. All right, next Tuesday, June 22nd, you have 4 simple but very important steps to take. In order to participate in this initiative, you will need to first find the Jalapeno email in your inbox next Tuesday, share the sign-up link with your staff, and then complete the registration form and take the survey. So let's go through each step. And to let you know, to sign up, it will take 1 minute and the survey will take about 15 minutes max. Okay, the email you will receive on Tuesday, June 22nd will come from the domain at jalapeno.app. So with the subject line of important CCBA diversity survey link. So please make sure you either check your spam or junk folder if you don't receive that email, or you can go to your setting today And if you go to the setting of your inbox, you can filter ccba@jalapeno.app and info@jalapeno.app to prevent them from going into your junk. If you're not sure how to change that setting, if you just Google how to ensure the email does not go to my spam, whether it's a Gmail or it's a Microsoft or any other platform you're using, there are really short, helpful videos that can guide you through that step. The email you'll be receiving on Tuesday will have the registration URL for that specific brewing. So the sign up link that you see in that email should be only used for your brewing. Each brewing gets their own customized sign up link. Please don't share the sign up link with anyone outside of your team. Also in that email, you will have an email template to use it to make the announcement and share the link with your staff. We encourage you to use the template because then you can make sure you communicate all the right information about the survey to your team as well. The third step is once you sign up, once you click on the sign up link, you'll be directed to a registration page. So you should be able to see your brewing logo on it. Please fill out the registration page. The reason you will have an account with email and password, there are two reasons. One, we want to make sure your data is a password protected format on front end as well as back end. The second reason is that we want to make sure you will be able to log in and see your data and track the progress over time. Do not share your password with anyone. This is only for you, and you're the only one have access to the data of yourself. And lastly, you will see a bar to take the survey. As I mentioned before, your data will be confidential and it will be only shared in an aggregated format. If by any chance the report violates anonymity, the software locks the report to ensure it's not presenting any report that might potentially violate anonymity. And if you have any questions, I guess we're going to have a Q&A at the very end, or you can always email us at ccba@jalapeno.app if you would like to learn more about the confidentiality piece and the security or all the entire process. Thank you.
Thanks, Samin. Dr. J, back to you to talk about the actual survey questions themselves.
Before Dr. J is up again, it's actually Blair. Thanks, Steve.
Oh, I apologize.
Okay.
Blair.
No worries. All right. Yeah, I'm real quick. No worries. So I'm really excited about this survey because I think as an executive director of the Alberta Small Brewers Association, it's going to give us a great tool to understand what resources we can offer to our members. And I'm pretty sure that the other executive directors across Canada are excited about that possibility as well. So as Samin mentioned, important dates to remember. June 22nd, you will be receiving the link to the survey. So mark that in your calendars. If for some reason you don't receive that link, reach out via those emails that were provided and are in the chat, or you can reach out to your executive directors if you need to. And we are looking at about a 2-week window for the survey. So it will close July 6th. This is to encourage participation. It doesn't take long to fill out the survey. So please encourage your employees to do that. Once you have that, send it out immediately to your employees. So again, June 22nd to receive, and July 6th, we will close that. So yeah, thanks. And now I'll hand it back over to Dr. J.
Thank you, Blair. Appreciate it. As mentioned, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about surveying. I'm not going to go through the specific questions. You'll see that when you see the survey. But I want to talk to you a little bit about why survey questions look the way they do, because I think these are some of the biggest and most important questions that come to me as someone who executes surveys. So I think the first thing to think about is utility. Right? Surveys have a function, and generally you're trying to accomplish a couple of different things with the survey. And the way the questions look is a product of what you hope to do with the survey. So first thing, at the very top of this webinar, Steve shared with you 4 major objectives of your Anti-Discrimination and Inclusion Committee at CCBA. One of the most important things that this survey is doing is providing the committee with the data it needs to move those 4 objectives forward. So it's not just scattershot information gathering. It's really about assessing where the industry is today so that the committee knows how to shape policy and decision-making to move forward. Second major function that is important in survey collection is being able to benchmark against some scientifically established metrics. Now, this is where the work with Jalapeno employee engagement comes in. They have some wonderful proprietary metrics that have to do with many different dimensions of employee experience, so that the questions that you will see in this survey aren't, again, arbitrary questions, but they are questions that are going to be scoring against particular metrics so that Jalapeno can deliver you insights about where you are and actionable steps moving forward. So that's hopefully gives you a sense that the questions aren't just random, but they're really structured to get you toward particular information. Now, some of the biggest sticking points for survey data is self-report demographic questions. Questions that ask you about your racial or ethnic identity, your gender, your sexual orientation, your age, right? A lot of people have a lot of discomfort disclosing this type of personal information. And a lot of times it comes from just not knowing what's going to happen to it or why people are asking. Now, I want to address this in a couple of different ways. First, and I want to echo what Samin said, that information is always going to be looked at in aggregate. Your individual response is never going to be tied to personally identifying information in a way that will be disclosed. So keep in mind that's going to be aggregate information. 2, yes, I'm sure we'll look at industry totals, right? What percentage of the industry is made up by different groups, but that represents just a baseline level of analysis. The 2 other levels of analysis that I think are really important are indexing and disparity. Now, when we talk about indexing, we really mean comparing to an index or to another standard. For the vast majority of survey data projects, the index you use is census data. Now that means you're going to see a couple of different things. One of the things, there's a balance that we try to do when we formulate survey questions is providing people with enough options to answer each question so that they know that they are valued and seen. And on the other side, making sure that the categories provided align with things like census data into big enough buckets so that the information we use is usable. If you collect data in a way that's so fundamentally different from your usable index, which may be the census, then you can't make comparisons and the utility of your survey is compromised in some ways. That means that sometimes a group that might not be explicitly named in the survey may have to write in, right, an answer. That's not because we want you to be rendered invisible or that we don't see you, but in some ways we have to make sure that this whole exercise has a great deal of utility. The second big piece that I mentioned there is disparity. And that's really about discovering if one group of people answers a question differently than another group of people. Again, that's not about individual survey responses, but it's about looking at groups in aggregate. And that's one of the really interesting things about surveying. Samin mentioned this in her presentation that we can't always rely upon our interpretations, our best judgments of how things are going. And I find that a lot of times when people see survey analysis and say, whoa, you know, people who identify as male and people who identify as female are answering this particular question very differently. Those types of disparities might come as a surprise and may elude if you don't have data to back them up. So when you're thinking about these survey mechanics, I want you to make sure that you keep in mind it's really not about drilling in on every single specific question. Really, this is about functional utility and getting to those analytical insights that Jalapeno is going to deliver that allow the CCBA and all of its member breweries to take action towards those imperatives that we've talked about, right? The financial imperative, the ethical imperative, and the innovation imperative that's driven by greater inclusion, equity, and justice. So if you have any specific questions about anything I said there, happy to answer them in the Q&A. But at this point, I'm trying to make up a little bit of time, so we have plenty of time for question and answer. And I think at this juncture, I'm turning it over to Ren.
And you
Friend
are.
Ren, is it
Yeah,
you?
it's me.
Okay,
It's
good.
me. Thanks, Dr. J. Hey, friends. I think most of you know me, but if you don't, I'm Ren Nevarro. I run Beer Diversity, and I'm located in Kitchener. So what up, Canadian beer? So I'm here to talk about survey deliverables and kind of like what is this? So we're looking at benchmarking as an industry because Canada doesn't have this kind of info. We're relying on a lot of anecdotal information. So now we're going to have tangible responses. We're going to have real info, and this will be from everyone. So it's benchmarking on two levels, obviously industry wide, but then it's also what's happening in your brewery. You can say that we're really open and we're very welcoming and there's diversity, or if you're looking at the Jedi model and there's justice and equity and inclusion, and there's that diversity that's in there, but now you'll actually see it. And so with this information, you'll know where to focus and you'll be able to say, this is true. We are doing these things. We have this representation. We look at these things in this way. And so with starting this first year, surveys, people always say, oh God, surveys, this will help you. This is actually the what's in it for me. This allows you to use this later on. This is going to be info that you can build upon. It will help you if you need to relook at something. If you're saying, we didn't know, now you're going to know. And you're going to know how you look against the rest of Canada. Where in the past we've been looking to America for their numbers, we'll actually be able to say, oh, we know what's happening here. So that's your Canadian context. This is what happens in Canada. This is how we talk about it. The questions will relate to us. So they will be placed in words, in formats that we know about. And it's not like we're speaking two different languages, but when we're talking about the states and the number of breweries that are active, they may be looking at pieces that they're not for us. So think of this, especially for this first piece and this first kick of the survey, you're building a really great benchmark. And so I do ask that you take, the short period of time that it will take to do it, because again, there's a lot in it for you. And I know it sounds like one of these kind of, the sales pitch, but it is, right? At the end of the day, if you're concerned about how your sales are looking and what's going to happen with your brewery, this is the survey that's going to help you plot down the line. And it can be this eye-opening piece, and I think it will be. And to also have it as the first survey that focuses solely on Canadian content, it's pretty important. So I think that we're going to be able to make some really big changes with it. And again, look out for that first email on the 22nd of June, because I think it's going to make a great impact. So again, thank you so much. I know that we're probably back on time. This is now the point for the Q&A. So if you have any questions, please feel free to throw them into the chat. Hillary and Steve, back to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Ren, and everybody. So we'll give a couple minutes for you to gather your questions and just put them directly in the chat, and then we will assign them to the panelists. If you have any questions about anything that was touched on, or anything with regards to the survey administration and how to administer it to your staff, feel free to just put those in the chat.
Don't be shy, folks.
All right, so looks like a question here from Chloe, when can we expect to get information on next steps and programs moving forward? So I don't know if you wanted to touch on that, Steve or Samin.
Well, I think sort of the big picture is by this fall, we hope to have the survey results analyzed and be able to announce some of the information that we got from a benchmarking survey. I think it's important for everyone to realize that this is a marathon; it's not a sprint, and this is a multi-year. Well, it's kind of a never-ending project, really, and so we do have a lot of goals moving forward, but we really want the survey results to help guide us in terms of prioritizing. So I can't tell you necessarily what comes next after we announce it, but we do plan on moving forward with a number of initiatives once we've got the results in.
Great. Looks like there's a couple questions along a similar vein just about the survey link. So I'll pass those over to Samin, just asking if there will be one link per brewery. If you could just expand on that a little bit. I think there's some confusion around that.
And before we get into that question, something I can add to Steve's response is that it's very, very important to make sure once you have the report, you'll have the capacity and resources to take action. So CCBA and RAND are putting really helpful resources together to make sure you can actually take action. So really, by the time we will be able to show the reports, we want to do that in fall. And there is a reason for that, because summer is a very busy time for this industry. And I don't think you will have the capacity to start doing all the training and making those changes. And we don't want to share the report if we don't have the resources right after, because that can have negative impact for your team, because your team would be like, oh, this is what's happening. How come we are not doing anything about it? So for that reasons, the reports will be all interpreted and analyzed and presented in fall. So you will have the capacity to actually take actions. In terms of the brewing link, so I'm a little bit confused. Can I access the survey or limited time? Apologies if I missed that. Okay, so there are so many questions comes. So the survey will be open for 2 weeks. So you can access it anytime during that 2 weeks. And I guess that's one question. The next question, will there be an email to access the survey to everyone who got a link to this session, or just one per brewing? So who got a link to this session? Oh, I see. So the people that they will be receiving the survey link, we have only one email address from each brewing, and I believe that's the main contact person from that brewing. So only one person will receive that link in the whole entire brewing, and then that person will share the link with the rest of the team members. If by any chance your brewing did not receive that link, please reach out to us, ccba@jalapeno.app. We will make sure we have the right contact information and we send you out the link. Let me see, will the email link come to the email we used to register? Will it come to the email we used to? Okay,
so it will, I think I can answer that one. The survey will be administered to whoever the contact for your provincial association is, which in most cases should be the owner or GM at the brewery. If you are the correct contact and you do not receive the survey on the 22nd, please reach out to the jalapeno email that was listed further up in the chat, and we will be sure it gets to the right person so you can administer it to your staff.
And just to kind of add to that, I can see a lot of names of individuals who are not the owner or general manager. So if you're attending on behalf of your brewery, but you're likely not the person that's going to receive the link, and to be very clear, attending this webinar is not setting up the email link to the survey. So that's predetermined by the provincial main contact. So if you're attending this webinar and you want to make sure that your brewery participates, make sure that you are contacting the owner or the CEO or the general manager of your brewery to make sure that they're participating. And really glad to see that there's a lot of folks on the call that are staff, not owners, but also really glad to see a lot of owners on this webinar as well, because that shows that there's great engagement across all parts of the
Awesome. The next question we have, will data be looked at geographically? So the data will be filtered in actually different levels and using different demographic information. So it will be benchmarked at provincial, national level. I'm going to address this question. The way to address the next question is, so you'll be able to filter the data different levels. By different levels, I mean national, provincial, and organization, like your own brewing. So you'll be able to see how your own brewing is doing, which is only visible to yourself. No one else can see what's happening in your own brewing. And in terms of that question, what if my brewing is too small? So that goes back to the point that I mentioned. The software is designed in a way that if the sample that we're going to be showing is less than 7 to 8 people, it will lock the report. So they won't be able to filter the data. If there is only one female in a team of 8, so that's very easy to find out, like if you filter it by a female, right? So we do have those sort of features implemented to make sure through any filtration, the anonymity won't be violated. And it will be only showing in an aggregated, bigger sort of filter. Did I address all the questions? I'm just going to have a look.
I believe there was one further up about breweries getting their own data to look at following the survey. I think that was the only one we missed.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, the report, you will be able to have access to data of your own brewing, which is only visible to your own brewing. And that's the reason your URL that you use to sign up is only for your brewing. So don't share it with anyone outside of your team for that purpose, because we want to make sure you get your own report for your own brewing specifically.
Great. And then that most recent question there, actually, maybe I'll direct this one to Dr. J about whether the survey fields offer areas for personal feedback, and just a little bit about question formatting, and maybe you can share some of the benefits of each with us.
Yeah, so there are a couple of places where you can do personalized feedback and places where you can opt out. So one of the things you should understand is that in addition to no question being required, you also have a prefer not to answer option for many questions, so that you can selectively opt out of questions you don't feel comfortable answering. That's just standard survey design. For many questions that involve categorization, for example, if you feel like the options provided to you in those answers don't cover your salient identities, you will have a space to add an option if you want. And then the survey does include a free response question. So it's just an open text field, and it invites you to provide any sort of feedback about anything you think is relevant. It's not necessarily structured, so you can provide that feedback there, and that's part of the survey design as well.
Thank you. Good. So if there are no other questions, I will pass it over to Steve.
Okay, well, I want to say how excited and grateful I am that we've had such great attendance to this webinar. I think I saw there's close to 90 people at one point in time. This survey, because of the unique structure of the Canadian Craft Brewing Association, the survey is going to have the potential to get to about 800 breweries. That will provide us with an incredibly rich set of data that's going to give us the information we need to really have an impact on inclusivity, and to create the outcome of diversity. And what's required now is for everybody to get excited about this, and to really get motivated, get your teams motivated. If you're a brewery owner, please take some of the information you got today and make sure that your staff understand how important this is for us as an industry. If you're not the owner, you're a staff member, make sure that you are managing up, and make sure that you're providing the leadership that our industry needs. You don't have to be the owner to be a leader, and you don't have to be the CEO you're at any point in your company, and that's what's required right now. This is a historic moment for Canadian craft beer, and this is one of the first big initiatives that the Canadian Craft Brewers Association is rolling out across all 800 breweries, and it's an ambitious step for us, and we're really counting on all of you to help us reach the goal here. Craft beer has been in the headlines over the last several decades for so many good things, but we've also been in the headlines for some areas where we need to improve, and inclusivity is definitely one of those, and it's really, really great to see this kind of motivation to make improvements. I really hope that in the years to come, we'll continue to make great progress, and I think it's important that we all have the goal of making our industry as diverse as the beer that we make. And so with that, I just want to say thank you so much. This really means a lot to all of the committee, and to me on a very personal level. So thank you to all of the presenters today. Great to have your expertise, because if you had to listen to me get all messed up, that wouldn't be as helpful. And thanks to Hillary, thanks to Rick for so much organization on this, and thanks to all the committee members for putting in countless hours so far to get this done. Let's go out there and change the world, folks. Bye.
Thanks, Steve. Bye.